evening and welcome to the WDSU News Hot Seat. I'm Norman Robinson. This week we marked the 8th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina and the 1-year anniversary of Hurricane Isaac. Tonight we'll examine the recovery of the two hardest hit parishes by Isaac and the aftermath post-Katrina 8 years later. We begin in Plaquemines Parish with President Billy Nungesser along with General Russel, Honore, the man credited with rescuing the city of New Orleans in the wake of Hurricane Katrina. Currently a scientist for the Gallup organization and author of the recent book, Leadership in the New Normal. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here.
Thank you.
Let's start with you. What's the status of recovery from Hurricanes Isaac a year ago and Katrina 8 years ago?
Well, the Katrina recovery is great. We've got $2 billion in levee improvements. All of the government buildings are back. The schools are about to open. Community centers. Isaac is another story. We're building that levee. It's not a federal levee with parish money. We needed 5 years without a storm to give us a fighting chance. Those people in Braithwaite that flooded, we got less than a half dozen homes coming back in that area.
Out of how many homes?
Out of hundreds.
Out of hundreds of homes.
Yeah. So
and what does that put the residents in Braithwaite?
Well, it puts them in a tough situation. You got 4 or 5 families moving back, and we're trying to get people to cut their grass and gut their homes that are just sitting there on empty streets. And it's hard to tell people, you know, we've got a 5 to 7 year plan is what it takes to get some flood protection there, and they can't hold their breath for 7 more years.
In the meantime, the flood insurance rates are sky.
Absolutely. We've got to fix that. That's something that failure is not an option. We don't change that law, coastal Louisiana will be unlivable.
General Honore, in your opinion, how prepared are we as a community and as a nation to deal or respond to disasters, natural or otherwise?
I think this state, when it comes to hurricane, has set the standard for the nation. And our National Guard is the best trained National Guard. Our National Guard, when you saw Isaac happen, when they went to see President Nungesser, they had boats behind their vehicles. Last year during Hurricane Sandy, the National Guard showed up with trucks. When you go to a flood, you need boats. And we've shared that lesson with them, but from Katrina to Gustav, now to Isaac, the state GOSEP concept, all that work. The governor is aggressive, the parish presidents are aggressive, the mayor of New Orleans is aggressive. I think the state, my biggest concern is the people, that people will get confidence in this $14 billion levee system and say, hey, we got a great levee system, we don't have to evacuate. Anything built by man can be overmatched.
We learned that in Hurricane Katrina.
Know that if a certain surge come in and a certain amount of water, it can overmatch the pumps and it can overmatch the levee. So we still have to have a system to evacuate people.
Now, we talk a lot about building levees and flood protection systems, but we will forever remain vulnerable to extreme storm surge unless we restore our wetlands.
Absolutely.
How do we do that?
Well, we have a plan in Plaquemines. Actually, the berms that the president approved is phase 3 of Plaquemines' plan. Later this year, we bonded out $50 million. We will start building a 1,000-foot berm behind our levees, phase 1 of Plaquemines. It is certified by the Court of Vicksburg to lower storm surge 5 feet. It'll be the first time ever that, and we have a letter from FEMA that they will acknowledge it as flood protection. First time ever something other than flood walls and levees is considered part of the flood protection. That's the first phase, ridges and islands out from there, and the outer barrier islands. When all 3 phases are in place in Plaquemines Parish, we will lower storm surge to our parish more than 16 to 20 feet.
16 to 20 feet. Well, what do we do about restoration of the wetlands?
Well, that's it. You build a ridge and the wetlands behind it will be protected. We learned a lot. All the environmental groups wanted to build wetlands, 16 inches. We fought for years to pump elevation like the governor just did out the Barrier Islands. After a storm, that marsh is gone. If you don't build an 8-foot ridge with trees to lower storm surge, protect the marsh, the levees, and the people behind that, we've got to build those high ridges that give us some fighting chance. Building coastal restoration without these large ridges, a thunderstorm, and we lose what we spent money on. It's wasting money.
General, how do we accomplish restoring the wetlands that were lost to us?
Well, here's my concern about the wetlands. And I think we can do things like the president's saying to enhance the protection. I'm worried about the loss of the wetlands.
Exactly.
Mother Nature put that there for a reason. And things that man has done we've messed with what Mother Nature has created. So we think of the wetlands, how we protect where we live. I'm worried about how we protect that nest, that birthplace that Mother Nature created for everything that lives in the Gulf, that nests there, that gives birth there, that breeds there, that lives there. I'm worried about those canals that's been cut through those wetlands, that's never been restored. One of the experiences that stayed in my mind, I got here, the storm hit Monday. Wednesday I flew over Plaquemines Parish in a Navy helicopter to go out to USS Baton. And I saw off the coast of Plaquemines Parish oil wells that had been topped over. They were, come to find out later, they were abandoned wells. Some of them been there 20, 30 years. Many of those wellheads are still there today. They have not been recovered. I'm of the opinion that the state and the federal government have to make sure that all companies go cap those abandoned wells. Because when they fail, what I saw flying out to the Baton was streaks of oil coming out of these old abandoned wells. I also saw these angles and choppers. If you fly into New Orleans, you see these straight lines. What that is access channels that have been put in that's never been stored. When the companies signed these permits, they agreed to close those and to cap the wells. I'm a believer that they got to do that. Do we have to do what the president said? Yes. But they need to go fix what they broke. They cannot trash our community.
Now, the East Bank Levee Flood Protection Authority filed suit against 97 oil companies for destroying the wetlands, and they wanted them to take action to repair them. You opposed that suit. Why?
Listen, I made my living in the oil field. And not only that, 70% of the parish budget is oil and gas. We're number 5 in the money we send to Baton Rouge because of oil and gas. Listen, we gave them the permits, the Corps gave them the permits, and yes, we learned over the years probably some of that should have been limited. Apache put up $3 million, Shell $1 million to build back the bird islands. Anytime we step up to the plate and ask the oil companies, they go beyond the call of duty in Plaquemines Parish. Phillips 66, $6 million for a community center. We don't need to sue. We work very well. They've done more in Plaquemines Parish and coastal restoration. They let their employees sit on teams to help us come up with these plans that we did. It didn't cost the parish nothing. In my parish, they've gone beyond the call of duty. I think you sit down and work with people. You don't always look to sue. I think when we're getting 80% of the restore money down to Louisiana, and we're going to get offshore revenue money in 2017, I think this suit sends the wrong message.
What about that, General?
Why did we sue BP? Why didn't we tell BP, you handle it, you give us what you want? These things get resolved in court. Right now, a big part of the state budget is from the tobacco suit. We can only take goodwill, and I applaud what the president is doing with the people now to keep the current things they're doing aligned. We're talking about clawing back mistakes that were made before he was born. Abandoned wells, channels that cut through what Mother Nature created. They've got to go fix it. If they fix it and they agree to fix it, we don't need a suit, you're right. But the only way we're going to get them to go close those channels and cap those wells and clean up the area that's a mess is through the legal process. That's what we do in a democracy. And I think we got to live in harmony. The current state he's living in with the companies, that's the way we want it. But we're talking about fixing problems that happened before he was born, before this current legislator was born or even thought about going. So we got to fix those problems because they're going to have enduring effect on how we live in Louisiana if we don't fix those old abandoned wells and those channels that's been cut through the wetlands.
We've got about 40 seconds. Last 2 comments on that point.
Yeah, you know, a lot of the canals are still being used for oil production, which sends a lot of money to Baton Rouge, and I don't think anybody wants their taxes to go up. Secondly, whenever we've had a problem, the oil field, they go out and take care of it. We don't have a problem in Plaquemines Parish. We've really worked well with all the oil and gas companies. Look, you saw me on TV. BP did not do the right thing.
Right.
When they do the wrong thing, I'll be the first one to stand up there. But the oil and gas companies in Plaquemines Parish have been great partners with the government, and they've gone beyond the call of duty.
Some of the poorest people in this state living around in the oil and gas parishes. If it's that big for our state, why are we still the poorest state in the nation? Why are we trailing in education and quality of air? I just say we got to live in harmony, and we got to use that money locally. We need to put people in Plaquemine Parish to work on those oil rigs. Most of those trucks down there come from Mississippi, Texas, and Oklahoma.
There's no unemployment in Plaquemine Parish because of oil and gas.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll have to leave it there. We pause for a quick break. When we come back, we'll see how things are going in St. John the Baptist Parish, where 1 year ago, thousands of residents were forced out of their homes and businesses and left to pick up the pieces of their lives following Hurricane Isaac. Don't go far. We'll be right back.
It's time. The final clearance